And here we are. Welcome back to the Redshirt Sophomore podcast, where we never sit out. We're your hosts, Matthew and Chris Dawson. What is going on, C to the D? We're in week 7, already over halfway there through the regular season. Tough. We don't like to see the end in sight. We don't like it.
Hate to think about that, but we're in the middle, right? Very early stages of conference play, middle October. It's a big weekend, right? The headliner is Washington, Oregon, and obviously we'll talk about that. USC, Notre Dame, two iconic brands for sure. There's a lot of other very, very important games that's going to determine the outcome of conference outlooks and even playoff contentions as well. I mean, we can't wait to get into this. A lot of good stuff. We got two group of 5 games we're breaking down that are actually really important and that matter in those respective
They're
conferences
huge.
and on the national stage.
They're huge.
4 teams that have been playing really good football and deserve to be talked about. So we'll talk about them.
Absolutely. And we previewed Wyoming, Fresno State last week. That was awesome. That was an awesome preview. So I was a huge fan of us. I mean, we like talking about it. But look, if you guys are watching this video, right, for the first time, right, watching us, we're gonna preview these games, right? We got 10 this week? 9. We got 9 games this week we're previewing. We'll also talk about a little upset meter. So that's 4 more games that potentially, hey, is there a little get into maybe some best bets for the weekend? So yeah, if you guys are joining us and you really like the content, like the video, right? Easy rule, right? Make sure y'all subscribe if you want to hear more every week. Monday, Thursdays, that's when we're posting previews and recaps of each week, right? Previews and recaps each week. We love doing this. Thank you guys so much for your support. If you guys want to email us, the Redshirt Sophomore at gmail.com, we can answer questions, preview teams that you maybe want us to cover, that maybe, isn't getting national attention or attention on this show. Because granted, we missed some games for sure. A lot of them. We're only covering 9 here. So, and also you can follow us on Twitter at the Redshirt Soft. It's at the Redshirt Soft. Interact with us on Twitter, right? We read everything, right? Love, hate, whatever it is. We enjoy all that we can get. And make sure you guys comment your predictions as well. So, ready to get into it, CD?
Let's do it.
Oregon traveling to Seattle at Washington. Washington is favored by 3. These are 2 teams just playing very high-level football this year. And we've talked about it. We talked about it in the preseason. We talked about it these past couple of weeks. The Pac-12 is probably the best conference in football, right? And these are the 2 teams that are looking down over everyone right now. So the fact that this is so early in the conference season, right, is helpful for these teams, right? Because then they got a chance to recover after this game, whoever loses. But man, this is gonna be an awesome game. You have a feel for this game? I mean, I struggle with this game. I do have a pick, of course. We always have picks for every game, but I'm struggling.
I'll give you my pick right away, and then I'll try to defend it. But to be honest, like you said, these are 2 really good teams. I'm just gonna watch the game and enjoy it as a fan, take it all in. I'm gonna go Washington -3. I just think they're a slightly better team at this point in the season, and they're healthy for the most part. Other than running back, they're pretty healthy, and they're at home. Right, Husky Stadium is no joke at all. For a lot of people on Midwest and the South and the East Coast, right? You don't really think about intense football environments on the Pac-12, and because of the California schools, like no offense to those schools, but those environments are not always electric as they are. But you look at the outside of those schools in the Pac-12, there's a lot of really great game day environments, right? Just ask Wisconsin what it's like to go into Pullman, Washington, and go play Washington State. I think University of Washington has one of the best environments in college football for sure. And I just think Michael Penix is going to show up. Bo Nix on the road, even though I trust him, he's getting better and better. He's seen a lot of football. He's got a great supporting cast around him. I just trust Michael Penix. I think he's a little bit better quarterback, especially at home. I think they got better weapons, and they're gonna get it done. And it's gonna be fantastic, though. It's gonna be fantastic.
Yeah, I do think. I mean, it is. You mentioned health for Washington. Getting Jalen McMillan back this week is gigantic, right? That is going to be huge for them. But it has felt like they're a little bit one-dimensional offensively, right? And the Oregon has been incredibly balanced, running the ball, passing the ball. Bo Nix, we're seeing all the bodacious signs on College Game Day. Obviously, he's marketing manager is trying to get his name out there, as if he has to get his name out there. He's playing like a stud right now. I'm gonna fade you here. I'm gonna go Washington +3. I'm also gonna take, or sorry, not Washington, Oregon +3. I'm also gonna take Oregon to win straight up. I just think when I look at these two teams, I'm gonna take the balanced attack right over the imbalanced attack. I do think Oregon's defense has been playing a lot better, right? We talked about Oregon and USC as being teams that really, really need to overhaul in the transfer portal. Both teams did, but really Oregon's the one that has made a difference defensively. Now, granted, they haven't played a lot of incredible teams, but I'd be willing to say that Colorado's a good offensive team. They're a good offensive football team, and they shut them down, right? So meeting expectations every single game, and it has looked like Washington defensively has been vulnerable, especially on that defensive line, I think. So I'm going to go ahead and take Oregon +3, and I'm going to take them to win the game straight up. Now, you've been whooping me in these picks, so seems like there's, I don't know. It makes me nervous that you're on Washington. Not gonna lie, just because you've been absolutely dialed in on our picks these last couple weeks. So
I will say part of it is because of where it's being played. I think neutral site. I think Oregon. I would give them much a better chance to win. It would be a lot harder to pick this game. Like this is a potential Pac-12 championship game, right? That's going to be really hard to pick at a neutral site, obviously. But we looked at Oregon on the road this year, right? Texas Tech, they went on the road, and to be honest, I was not impressed. I know they won, but Texas Tech, we've seen right now, is not a very good football team. I get it, their quarterback's been hurt, and they played them with a healthy Tyler Show or Shuck, but like Tyler Shuck, but I was not impressed. And then they started slow on the road at Stanford, and Stanford is not near the environment that Washington's going to be. So I don't know. I think Washington at home gives them a huge advantage in this game. They've been cooking, man. Other than Arizona, right? They had Arizona. But I believe both these teams had a bye week last week, if I'm not mistaken. And so they got a chance to like really get ready and prepared for this game. And obviously both teams off a bye. It's gonna be really good football, right? But yeah, look for one of these quarterbacks to separate themselves in the Heisman race, right? Michael Penix or Bo Nix. Definitely gonna be like another notch in their belt for if head-to-head matchup like that matters in college football in voters' eyes. But this isn't a Heisman show. This is about college football. So give me
let me
Michael
ask you.
Penix.
Let me ask you. I think this is a tough question, by the way. I'm not asking because I think there's a right answer. I have my opinions, but which coaching staff do you think is better? Kalen DeBoer with Ryan Grubb, or do you like Dan Lanning's staff over there?
If this was last year and Kenny Dillingham was still there, are you talking about just offensive defense? If you're talking about offensive defense, give me Kalen DeBoer and Ryan Grubb. Ryan Grubb, I think, is probably going to be the top offense coordinator hire to the next position at in the next hiring cycle or whenever he chooses to leave UW. But obviously losing Kenny Dillingham hasn't hurt them much yet, but also like in terms of total staff, you got hands off to Kalen DeBoer in Washington. I do think Dan Lanning, in terms of the future of the program, right? Both these teams moving to the Big Ten, they're gonna have this game mean a lot for many years to come, especially with both these head coaches there. I do trust Dan Lanning long term, but as of right now, coaching staff, game to game execution. All right, Kalen DeBoer, I trust to have him ready to go.
I do like Will Stein though for Oregon. Like when it's mattered, right? He has stepped up. When it has mattered, Will Stein has stepped up, and that's a young guy too, young guy. So I like Dan Lanning coaching defense. So I don't know. In my eyes, I when I was reviewing right our last picks, I'm like, what has been the common denominator in like you being successful, me not as being successful. And there were a couple games when I took the better coaching staff, and I won a lot of those games. But majority of the time, I feel like you're taking the games where you get the better coaching staff, and it's paid off for you. So in this game, I was trying to evaluate that. I really couldn't come away with the clear favorite, but I just kind of like Oregon in this spot. I just think they're balanced both offensively and defensively.
I think you bring up a good point with the way Oregon shut down Colorado. And if you look at the similarities on offense between Colorado and Washington, I mean, it's almost like if you just injected steroids into the Colorado offense, that would be what Washington is. And in terms of a team, really electric passing the ball, elite weapons on the outside. Now I'm much higher on the Washington O line than Colorado, and that's shouldn't even be a conversation. But in terms of they couldn't run the ball, and Oregon and those pass rushers that they've got the transfer portal or wherever else like have had success this year, and in that game, just pin their ears back and rush the passer. But I do think Ryan Grubb and Kalen DeBoer are going to make an emphasis on creative running the ball, right, to give Michael Penix a chance to not be being crushed back there and call the dogs off for Oregon so that those wide receivers can get the ball in space and can do other things like that, which make that offense so electric. But yeah, that's a good point about the Oregon defense.
Texas A&M traveling to Neyland Stadium, squaring off against the Volunteers of Tennessee. Texas A&M coming off pretty brutal loss against Alabama. Brutal in the sense where it really felt like they could have won that game. A couple things go their way. Some coaching decisions were made. Tennessee coming off a really impressive win against South Carolina. I know it was at home, and I know that South Carolina's offensive line is not at a Power 5 level at all. But they really got off. They got after Spencer Rattler, guy who burned them last year, and they've made those adjustments. But I still got a lot of questions for both teams. I got a lot of questions for both teams. And we're like 6 games through the season, and it still feels like I'm learning about these teams, new things every single week. How do you feel about this game?
Yes, I think again we just talked about in Oregon Washington home field these conference games. It's really hard to go and win on the road. And obviously Neyland Stadium
especially for Jimbo
is exactly, and Neyland Stadium is one of the hardest places to play for sure in the country, especially when Tennessee's playing good football. But also, like, do we even know about this Tennessee team? I still don't know because I was not really impressed with them in the beginning of the year. When I did my offseason breakdown, I was like, I don't know what I'm seeing in this team that everyone else is. And then they show up flat against Florida, and that's a Florida team that also got railed against Kentucky, and they beat South Carolina. But like, how good is South Carolina? I still, it's too early in the conference season for me to actually like have a good grasp on Tennessee. I think if Joe Milton shows up, and he's not the problem. I think he's played fine, but if they really open the offense up for him, obviously they got to figure out a way to replace Brew McCoy. Very sad injury that he occurred there, but I don't know. At this point, like the drop off between Joe Milton and Max Johnson, I don't think is a ton, right? Max Johnson, I think he didn't play his best game last week.
No.
This is also a Tennessee defense that's nowhere near the talent and the athleticism that Bama has, especially along that front. But also like Tennessee has ran the ball really well all year, and like the outside perception of what Tennessee football is in terms of their offense is about, like, you remember last year where it was Jalen Hyatt and it was Cedric Tillman, it was Hendon Hooker throwing deep passes, and it was like explosive plays through the air that needed to make this offense work. It's not at all what it really is in general, but also especially this year. They're a ground and pound team, running the ball with success, but also that plays right into A&M's strength. They allow 84 yards rushing a game. They shut down Bama's offense of rushing attack. So I'm gonna go. So man, but also the schedule dynamics here. You gotta think about it. A&M, brutal physical game last week. Morally let down against Alabama, and Tennessee coming off a good win, and then also a bye week, and then coming back home. I mean, I'm gonna go A&M here, just because I don't love
To
Tennessee,
win
and
straight up.
I'm gonna take them to win straight up. I'll take the 3.5. I don't feel good about this at all. I'd rather bet the total of this game, which I think we'll see what happens in that. But yeah, you can go. See what do you got to say?
Okay, well, I'll tell you this, and the comment section can correct me if I'm wrong in this, but I believe Jimbo and the Texas A&M Aggies have lost their last 7 true road games. Their last 7, right? But here, let's play another game. Let's play a game of strengths and weaknesses, right? Tennessee. Now, if you were to tell me this before the season, I would have thought you're crazy. Joe Milton, 14th in the SEC in yards per attempt, 70th in passing yards per game. But their offense has been successful because they're seventh in the country in running the ball, seventh in the country in rushing yards per game. Completely flipped from last year. Credit to Josh Heupel making that flip, knowing his personnel. But at the same time, it feels like Joe Milton can get it out there. And let's also play another game strengths and weaknesses for Texas A&M defensively. Ninth in the country in rushing yards per game. Now, if you were to tell me that before the season, I would have been like, okay, so we got great linebacker play and we got growth on the defensive line. Both of those things are true. Going into the season, I would have made the argument that Texas A&M secondary was a top 10, maybe top 5 secondary projected on paper based on the transfers that they got. And it has not been the way it is. It has been horrendous, right? Now they stay in terms of passing yards per game, they're still doing pretty good because they faced Auburn, and New Mexico and Louisiana Monroe, right? So the numbers still look good there. The pass defense has been what's been abysmal, right? But of course, Tennessee is not throwing the ball effectively right now. So when you're looking at strengths and weaknesses, A&M's defense kind of matches up well with Tennessee. And offensively, A&M's had a really, really tough time running the ball. And Tennessee struggled stopping the run against a team even like Florida, right? But then again, their pass rush has been really good, which has been a problem for A&M, right? Like getting pressure on the quarterbacks. So when I look at this, I hate the fact that I'm going to take A&M here, the points and the win straight up because of the matchup. I hate that I am doing that. But I just like, in my eyes, this Texas A&M football team is better than Tennessee. But then again, like we're gonna come back here, fast forward a couple days when we're doing the recap, and I'm gonna be going through. We're gonna be talking about why did Tennessee win this football game. That's exactly what's gonna happen. I'm picking A&M, but we're gonna be talking about why Tennessee won this football game about 4 days from
now. I think the reality is A&M has a better roster than Tennessee, like top to bottom, like absolutely. And at this point, right, DJ Durkin, we know our thoughts about him. We don't have to get into him. If you're new to this show and just listening, you're a Tennessee fan, DJ Durkin is terrible, and we've known that for a couple years now. Regardless, I do like Bobby Petrino in this matchup. I think he can get it done against Tennessee, and I just don't know how good Tennessee is. I cannot pick them because I know how good A&M can be. I've seen it. We saw it at times in the Bama game. We've seen it against Arkansas, right? We saw it for the first half against Miami. Can they put together a 4-quarter game, right, on the road?
They haven't done
in a hostile environment
all year against Power 5 teams. They have not done that this year.
The last time they really did that, and correct me if I'm wrong, is what, 2021 against Bama, right?
I would say yes, but also the LSU game last year.
Okay,
really look at it.
Thank you.
But then again, but it's that and then the Alabama game. That's it.
Common numbers. Both those games were at home. We talked about true road games for Jimbo Fisher has not been kind to him. So what's the feeling here? I'm just gonna take the better roster. A lot of the matchups here, you broke them down, I thought, really well. What's gonna give? And we sit here telling you you're very well known with A&M. We're both SEC guys. We followed that for a while. We have no idea. And I don't think many people do on either coach. Shapes up for a really good football game. And you're going to learn a lot about both these teams here. And in terms of projecting forward for the rest of the year when they get into conference play, later into conference play. But for A&M here, I think in terms of impact, you got to have this game. Because the schedule does not get much easier, right? Yes, the SEC West is down, whatever, but you still have to play both Mississippi schools, which you with, right? You've got to play at LSU. We'll see. And for Tennessee, you still have Bama and Georgia on your schedule, which you do not want to be 4-2 before having played both those teams, because then you're staring at 8-4 with downside to go to 7-5, which was not where you wanted after a season like last year. So we'll see. We'll learn a lot about both these teams, and regardless, that environment's gonna be awesome. We'll see what happens.
Notre Dame at home versus USC. I struggle with this game a lot. I'm going to go ahead and say that I am taking Notre Dame to win, and I'm taking the points, -2.5. But that also feels ridiculous to me going against Caleb Williams, especially like with Notre Dame offense that is struggling the way it is, and there is a better coaching staff. Well, a better offensive coaching staff in the Southern Cal coaching room there. But man, Notre Dame's defense has been pretty good. If they can just, you know, find ways to just stop Caleb Williams when it matters, which goodness, that is not an easy task. But if they just choose to run the ball and then run the ball, this USC team can't tackle. They literally they choose not to do it. And over again, I keep thinking like maybe because A&M had tackling problems earlier in the season. And it kind of looks like, they're playing still like pretty aggressive now. And it's like it's kind of gotten better-ish. Like you're kind of like, oh, maybe that was just like an outlier. It is every week, in and out, every week, this USC team. Almost one possession game with Arizona, one possession game with Colorado, one possession game with Arizona State, back to back to back weeks. Now, we talked about schedule dynamics with Notre Dame. They've played a lot of tough games,
Yeah,
recently. But in the same facet, USC has also played some really tough games for them, like in like one possession gritty games. So the last 3 weeks, I don't think the schedule dynamic benefits USC in this case because they've also played some tough games that has relied heavily on their offense. A lot of plays being run. I mean, just so I kind of grit my teeth when I take Notre Dame and Notre Dame -2.5, but here we are. They're at home. This is a big game. They both kind of need this one. Give me the Fighting Irish.
if you told me at the beginning of this year, because I was pretty high on USC, I was hoping that they were going to fix at least half of their mistakes on defense, or a quarter of them, and they'd still be much improved with an elite offense. Lincoln Riley, Caleb Williams. You don't even need to elaborate on that. If you told me you were going to give me +2.5 with USC, right? I mean, the game, yes, it's at Notre Dame. I get that, but I'm going to take USC to win this game, and I don't like it at all. I picked against Notre Dame last week for the schedule dynamics issue. I think it's going to be hard to ask that defense to get up for one more time, 4 straight weeks in a row, right? And they played their hearts out against Ohio State. They played their hearts out against Duke, right? And they played the best they could against Louisville until it kind of got away from them in the second half there. And you're sitting after those 3 games and you're 1-2. And I know it, like we've been on football teams that with a defense that's carrying an offense, they get frustrated after a while. And I'm not saying that's going to happen. I'm not saying Marcus Williams is going to let that happen, but I do know that takes into account. And the problem is if USC jumps on Notre Dame early, boom, they're going to throw away that running game out. And I would beg them not to, right? As if you're rooting for Notre Dame, because it doesn't matter if you're down by 14 points, 70 points, your best chance of moving the football. I mean, you can do it a lot of ways, but like for Notre Dame specifically, it's to run the football against this USC team. The interesting part is you look back at that Arizona game, Arizona kind of jumped on USC and they had a positive game script all game, right? It wasn't that they were down big. And we talked about that with the USC and Colorado game 2 weeks ago in terms of USC blowing that big lead, whatever. I didn't really factor that in too much. I think in the fourth quarter of a blowout game, your defense is going to be playing prevent and whatever else. Now, it was way too easy for Colorado to score regardless, so I don't take that too much into consideration. I do think if Notre Dame stays in the football game in the first half, I do think they will grind it out and get a win against USC. But also, like, it's just so hard to pick against Caleb Williams. When, like, I like Sam Hartman, I really do. But when the quarterback gap is just that big, it's like, if you need one drive to go in this football game, which Vegas is telling you that it's going to be a close 1-score game, I think with Caleb Williams, the ball in his hands, I do not see Notre Dame stopping him. I really don't with those weapons. And also, on the other hand, like Arizona and Colorado have the weapons offensively to take advantage of USC's defense. And now, yes, Notre Dame's got some good pieces, good running backs, great tight ends. I'm still not convinced on their wide receiver position. Like, how are they really going to expose this USC defense like Arizona and like Colorado did the past 2 weeks?
Okay, so Caleb Williams, I'm not gonna say like was overrated, right? That's not what I'm gonna be saying with this. But if you're looking at the defense that they've played up to this point. We can talk about San Jose State, not necessarily elite. Nevada, not necessarily elite. Stanford, not necessarily elite. Arizona State, not necessarily elite. Colorado, not necessarily elite. Arizona, not necessarily elite. So what happens? Like, are they going to be able to make adjustments, very quickly? Like, if things go wrong offensively, my answer to that is they probably will, but I think this just might be a case where, in my eyes, I think if Notre Dame just sticks to running the football, man, like they just did not do last week. Granted, Louisville did some good things in the run defense. They just didn't even try though to run the ball. They run the ball early. Audric Estime should get the first touch of the game for Notre Dame. The fact that he didn't get the ball until like 43 seconds left in the first quarter is ridiculous. And that was, goodness gracious, just give him the ball, right? Just give him the ball. Let him wear down this defense. Keep the ball out of Caleb Williams' hands. There's a way to win this, Marcus Freeman. You just got to do it, man. You just got to do it.
Does this bring Notre Dame back in the playoff condition?
No.
The playoff comp? No.
Nope,
You think they're out?
I think they're out. There's nothing that they can do. I don't think that can put them back in.
Nope. The problem is 2 losses, no conference championship in a year where you have depth at the top of college football, where you have 8 to 10 teams that are all going to be having a case to make their college football playoffs, and Notre Dame not having that 13th game on their schedule is really going to bite them. And we'll see if it forces them to join a conference, right? I'm sure the ACC will be pointing that out to them for sure. But
yeah, now I do think, this is wild to say, but I do think if they win this game, if Louisville drops one to Miami, right, then and they go on to win the ACC championship, Louisville could get in at 11-1, possibly, or 12-1, I guess, if you win the conference championship, possibly. If Notre Dame wins this and stays strong, and this win keeps looking better and better for them. So this has an impact on other teams as well, not necessarily in Pac-12 standings or ACC standings or whatever, but for the college football playoff picture, this game has a lot of implications in that area, not just on these two teams.
Yeah, strength of schedule, especially when there's a very subjective viewpoint of making decisions. It's going to be what happens. I will say in terms of, I guess this is probably a reason why I wouldn't pick USC, even though I did. Going on the road, especially traveling across 2 time zones, is not easy. It's not easy at all. USC, UCLA, Washington, Oregon, they're all going to find that out, on a week-to-week basis when they're going to travel to Rutgers and all those other Big Ten schools. But it's not easy. We saw Cal host Auburn. Auburn came in and came out super flat, right? We've seen teams travel across the country and really struggle at times. But it's just hard to pick against Caleb Williams. I just think he's too good. And I know the defense Notre Dame has is much better than anything else he's ever seen. This is also college football, though. When we talked about it with Ohio State last year, we talked about it a lot. Like, elite offenses are just way better than elite defenses. Like, Notre Dame has a really good defense. But if USC just shows up and plays to the best of their capability on offense, they will put up 40 points pretty easily. And yes, Notre Dame shut down Marvin Harrison Jr., but Kyle McCord is not Caleb Williams. And that offense didn't do much against Maryland for 3 quarters. So we'll see here. But again,
Indiana?
Yeah. A lot of other instances there. But yeah, this USC Notre Dame game, it's awesome. Very, very awesome. Glad for college football that this game happens as frequently as it does, especially with both these teams playing pretty good football up this year so far.
Iowa at Wisconsin. The Minnesota fans' dream as a Gopher, because guess what? One of these teams loses. So I'll give you the Big Ten West guy. I'll give you the start on this. Well, what are you thinking about this game? What do you see?
I mean, I really don't have a feel. I'm gonna take Wisconsin to win and Iowa to cover. And it might seem like a cop-out, but I really think, first of all, with this rivalry, right, Big Ten West football in general, like, it's hard to separate on teams, especially when you have an elite defense like Iowa and I wouldn't go to so far as to call it pedestrian, but I would not say a very good offense in Wisconsin. We still have yet to be seen how Tanner Mordecai is going to hold up in the Big Ten West with some of these defenses like Iowa that he's going to see. And also, like, I just don't think I can't pick Iowa to win because going on the road, right? Deacon Hill, credit to him for coming in for Iowa and replacing Cade McNamara, but he's obviously not it right now. That guy's got a good arm on him, but he's
I
just
believe he came from Wisconsin. I believe.
yeah, yep.
Is that
So
correct?
Wisconsin signed him out. He was a 4-star guy, went to Wisconsin.
Revenge game.
So that could factor in it too, but I just can't. I just cannot pick against Iowa here. I think Wisconsin, unfortunately, with injured McNamara, with how bad Wisconsin's offense has looked, I think they're gonna run away with the West here. But it's a rivalry game, right? This game, who knows what can happen? It's obviously got Big Ten West implications. If any of you guys are interested in that, which I'm assuming if you're watching the video, you absolutely are, but it's not going to do much in terms of the outlook of just college football in general. But for those of us in the Midwest, we love this game. Right? It'll be a fun game to watch. As low scoring, as grinded out as may be, Iowa Wisconsin's always a good game.
Yeah, to me, this game has Tanner Mordecai throws 4 interceptions written all over it. But
Wow.
I'm not taking Iowa to win straight up though. I'll take Wisconsin to win, Iowa +10. But that's the thing. Tanner Mordecai could throw 4 interceptions and still win this game,
It's still win,
which is
that has to
nuts.
infuriate you as an Iowa fan. Infuriate you.
Yeah, I mean, just it's crazy. I mean, I don't know, like you said, like how effective is this Wisconsin offense really? Like, I don't think it's too effective. Deacon Hill made one good throw last week and won the game. One. He made a singular good throw. And of course, that defense led by Cooper DeJean. Cooper DeJean is a dude, by the way. Every week
He's
he's
incredible.
making some ridiculous play that just saves them the game. So I think he'll have another. If there was a betting line to have for a Cooper DeJean interception with Tanner Mordecai slinging the rock carelessly around the yard in Power Five play, I mean I'll take it. I would take it, but as long as you were getting me like +450, that'd be pretty nice. But yeah, Wisconsin here. It's just hard for me to see Iowa scoring enough points. Because how many points does Iowa need to score to win this game? Like 17, probably. And I don't think they can get there.
But the thing is this Wisconsin defense, I think is vulnerable, more vulnerable than it's been in the past. Can Iowa take advantage of it? Probably not. So that's where you get exactly where the defense could show up. Tanner Moore could have one of his games where he, throws all his interceptions, turns the ball over. We saw what happened at Washington State. Granted, that was across the country in Pullman against a very good Washington State team with a guy like Cameron Ward to take advantage of all that, which they did. Iowa just can't. The problem is if you're an Iowa fan right here and you're looking at the rest of your schedule, it it is like it is served up for you right here. If you win this game here, you're gonna walk your way to the Big Ten West Championship again somehow, and then end up in Indianapolis. As for Wisconsin, you still have to play, right? I believe you got Ohio State. Is that next week? And then maybe at Minnesota is a tough game for you. I mean,
I
not
mean, it's
not right now
playing
with the way Minnesota's
Dax.
playing. It's yeah, it's a rivalry game there, but
Helter
you
Darius
beat
Taylor,
Iowa.
maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, you beat Iowa and you put yourself in firm contention to win the West here with that tiebreaker over Iowa. Your one loss is like we said earlier against Washington State, but also like they've been playing better football. I guess Purdue they kind of manhandled. Rutgers kind of got close, but I was never really worried about that game. Georgia Southern, we'll talk about them later. That's a pretty good football team. Right? They pulled away late on them, but still a pretty good football team. So we'll see though about both these teams. I think I'm gonna watch this game for sure, but
Oh
who
yeah,
knows?
you'll watch this. Yeah, I mean, well, duh. I mean, how can you? This is one of those you can't take your eyes off this game for sure. Miami, at UNC. The line is 3.5 in UNC's favor. Drake May coming off 2 games where he has just looked like an absolute animal. Like returning to Drake May form, post Phil Longo era in North Carolina, he is looking like a dude. Miami, on the other hand, is coming off. Is it maybe the most embarrassing loss in their, well, besides the Middle Tennessee State last year? Yeah, I can't even say. I was about to say, is that the
which
most
is
embarrassing
like
loss in their program? And I'm like, all you gotta do is rewind, 12 months, and goodness
not
gracious.
not a
So
great start for Mario Cristobal. And we both I like Mario Cristobal, and I think you do as well. He's gonna succeed there. Not a great start. Have two of the more embarrassing losses, right? Come in the first 2 years of your program there.
yeah, I mean, again, I wouldn't be surprised though if Miami came out and just floored North Carolina, with their
Yep.
great offensive line, being able to run the ball with their pretty stable running backs. Tyler Van Dyke just says, "Oh, actually, I threw 3 picks last game." Yeah, just remember he is the guy that everyone thought was a first round draft pick, and then he just lights it up. But with that being said, yeah, give me UNC and give me the points too. I don't care. Give me the hook. Give me 4. Give me 4.5. I don't care what it is. I can't trust Mario Cristobal. I can't do it. I can't do it right now. Granted, kind of he gave my team A&M the business when we rolled into their town there. But this is again on the road, right? Like this basically implies that like Miami and UNC on a neutral field are like almost even, which I right now I'm not. I can't get my head around that. Uh, so give me UNC. Give me the points.
I'm gonna agree with you here. North Carolina. I've been very impressed with them all year. Yes, their defensive numbers don't look great because of that one Appalachian State game, right? That game's always grind, right? But they dominated Minnesota, right? They dominated Pitt and Syracuse. Now I get that that's not super impressive to do that, right? But and they gave up too many points to Pittsburgh. One of them was a kicker return for a touchdown, so it is what it is. But I just think, like you said, Drake May, Des Walker, right? All those guys, they have weapons in that room. Actually, I've been really impressed with them. Nate McCollum is a real wide receiver one in the ACC. And obviously Van Dyke's good. Shreppo and Miami. That's good. That's a good team. That's a real good team. Ken
Don
Kitchens.
Chaney kind of taking over the backfield there a little bit,
Yeah.
even
And
though he had
so
the
so
fumble
it,
there.
yeah. Yikes. But I just think UNC at home, Drake May. No, I could see a situation where Tyler Van Dyke does play some of his best football, like you just said. Like it's college football. Week to week, things change a lot. Yes, they struggle with Georgia Tech. Ultimately ended up losing that game because of just whatever happened, right? I'm not even gonna justify it. But again, it's a new week. You get 12 different versions of each team, and Tyler Van Dyke can have a heck of a game where he throws the ball all like he did against A&M. I do think this North Carolina team, and the reason why I'm picking them, the defense, I think is much improved from last year. Like you've seen it so far this year against Syracuse, right? Even Pitt and Minnesota, and then obviously South Carolina, right? They dominated that game from the jump. So yeah, I think with Drake May coming in form, like you said, good for NFL scouts, good for UNC fans, not good for the rest of the ACC. I'm sure none of those guys are very happy with that at all.
I agree. And yeah, defensive that was the biggest thing too. Like in the offseason, I'm like, man, they kept Gene Chizik, right? I mean, I took their under on the win total. So like, man, they kept Gene Chizik. Feels like they didn't really upgrade at a whole lot of spots via the transfer portal. Maybe they lost some guys. But I mean, Cameron Kelly's playing okay at Louisville, but Tony Grimes is he hasn't touched the field at A&M. So it's like, are these guys that they lost really, really all that bad, or all that good? And they're getting great linebacker play right now. I mean, we kind of knew that they got experience there. So, uh, yeah, I mean, good for UNC, man. Good for UNC. UCLA at Oregon State. Corvallis, baby. Both teams coming off really nice wins. I know people might look, oh, they gave up 40 points to Cal. Oregon State did. Yes, they also scored a touchdown pretty late. I mean, Oregon State was in control of that game the entire time, and DJU looked like a monster. Now, here's the thing. UCLA's defense is legit. And we just saw it. We just saw it on full display when they shut down Cam Ward, who we've been talking about all year, being fantastic. And he still is a really good player. He still is fantastic. I'll put him in the fantastic category, but UCLA shut him down. So, what happens in Corvallis? I'll give it to you.
Again, I do think home field matters here so much. I think Corvallis is very hard to go in to win. If you're Dante Moore, who, yes, we've all been really impressed with, and yes, I do hold him to a higher standard than most true freshman quarterbacks because he was a 5-star, right? Top 2 player in the country, depending on where you looked, right? And he's been very good. I think he's been very good. I'm kind of waiting for them to unleash the reins on him, let those playmakers do their thing. Is it the O-line that's, struggling with them? Does Oregon State have the D-line to take advantage of that? I think they do. We didn't really see that against Washington State a bunch, but against other teams we have. And in Corvallis, I think this Oregon State team is kind of a wagon. We saw that against Utah, right? They dominated them for 4 quarters. And then last week, you really saw what DJU was capable of when he needed to, and he didn't. Now, I do think, like you said, USLA's defense is fantastic. Very, very, very good. But I'm ready to go. Give me Damian Martinez. Give me DJU. I'll take Oregon State in the points here. And continue to ride Jonathan Smith here.
Yeah, and in every single game that they've played, it doesn't matter who they're playing. They've played some really good defenses this year. They've played on the road this year, right? But obviously they're at home right now. But I'm just saying, like, in every single game that they play this year, they've been able to run the ball effectively. Even Utah's front seven. Now, granted, their defensive line's a little bit banged up, Utah's is, but they were dominating up front, every team, right? And Oregon State was able to go in there and run the ball with, Fenwick, Martinez, obviously, stud. So I'm riding here with you. I'll give me Oregon State. Give me Oregon State and the points -3.5. I believe that you picked them, right? Or have you not made a pick yet? Okay. And then yeah, but dude, and the thing is, we're gonna say this a lot. We say this a lot in these Pac-12 games. The winner of this game, obviously is a really good team, but that does not mean that the loser of this game is a bad team. No, let's not. If one of these teams drops to 4-2 or 5-2, whatever it is, I think Oregon State would drop 5-2. UCLA would drop 4-2. I don't know which teams have had buys, but either way, the loser of this game is not a bad football team. And now, granted, the loser of this game, their chances of making the Pac-12 championship dwindles pretty low, right? In that Pac-12 environment, with 2 losses in conference, that's a tough hole to dig yourself out of right there. So, in terms of like actually being a good football team, right? Losing, we used to be good, lose this game and be a good football team. But in terms of like actual conference championship implication, playoff implication, right? I mean, this game, it's kind of win or go home almost. So, why do we need the playoffs if we have games like this that are basically a playoff game, So
Exactly.
But no one's talking about it as a playoff game. But this is kind of do or die right here for both of these teams. And yeah, give me Dante Moore. I rode with him on the road before against Utah. I just can't do it again. I can't do it. Yeah, give me Oregon State. Give me Oregon State and the Beavs, who are looking awesome right now.
I do think a path to victory for UCLA, because we both talked about how Oregon State was going to win. I do think path to victory is, well, first of all, DJU makes his mistakes that he's made in big games all throughout his career, right? And that's no slight against him. Like we've seen it before, and it sounds like he's corrected it. But then they played Washington State, and then it wasn't great. Even though I thought he played well, he made that couple, maybe two mistakes, and it really cost him. If DJU is the one making mistakes, and it's not Dante Moore, and Dante Moore's O-line keeps them upright, they're able to run the football, they're able to control clock and control tempo, then obviously that leads a much better path to UCLA. And if you get Oregon State out of their game script, having to pass the ball, come from behind, and you let those pass rushers and that defensive line for UCLA really get after them, that's going to change absolutely how this game ends up as, and some of the big plays that can shift the game into one direction or the other. But yeah, like you said, we're both taking Oregon State. good point there was don't 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 think less of either of those teams, especially if it's a close game. Right, both these teams. One of these teams is going to drop in the rankings, in the AP rankings. They should not drop in your own personal, ratings on who's great in terms of better football teams than the other ones. But yeah, one of these teams has to win, which is the best part about college football is, you play the games and someone loses, someone wins. But going to be upset for one of these teams because we both like these teams. We've covered a lot of these teams and we'll continue to cover them as they get into Pac-12 play. But yeah,
Iowa State at Cincinnati. Whoa. Bet you didn't think we were covering this game. This is an interesting game. Two teams. Cincinnati, Iowa State. Here's how the start of their seasons went. Now here's where they are right now. Kind of both right there. Kind of two teams headed in the opposite direction a little bit. Rocco Becht kind of slinging the rock around right now. Iowa State getting it done against TCU, getting it done against Oklahoma State. This is an Iowa State team that I think a lot of people are starting to kind of turn their heads for. I'm not certain that they're exactly Big 12 title contenders. Actually, spoiler, they're not. But at the same time, it is really good to see this team performing well to their standards. Matt Campbell, people have talked about him being on the hot seat. So a game like this is pretty important for him, right? But this game's being played at Nippert. Cincinnati, 2-3 right now. Would love to get them to 3-3, of course. And this is a Cincinnati team that's played well at times. They've played very good football at times. But the question is, can Emory Jones take care of the football? Can they run the ball effectively like they were at the start of the season? And can they force Iowa State to make mistakes on offense?
Yeah, like you said, this is really credit to Iowa State here. This Rocco Beck has kind of turned that football team around based on what happened last year, what happened in the offseason with all the betting and your quarterback goes down and Matt Campbell hot seat, and then you lose to Iowa, right? And then you lose to Ohio, and it's like, here it is again for Iowa State. And then they ride the ship. Rocco Beck plays a fantastic game, beats Oklahoma State, and then you lost Oklahoma, but Oklahoma's a good football team, and you beat TCU, who that's a great win for you guys. Now you got to go on the road and play at Cincinnati, like you said. Cincinnati got a bye week, and they needed it, man. They really needed it. Lost to BYU on the road. Obviously, not an easy place to play there, but BYU, or I'm so sorry, Cincinnati. That transition to Big 12, we thought it was going to be tough, and it has been so far. But they're going to get into a stretch here where there's a lot of winnable football games, and getting one this week here would be massive for Satterfield and staff there with Cincinnati. I do hope Emory Jones, after the bye week and that running game gets fixed, I think the defense is going to show up. I think they'll give Rocco Becht some troubles at times. I can't believe this line's actually that high. I was kind of expecting it to be closer to 3. But I'm going to continue with Cincinnati here. I'm going to take Cincinnati in the points. I do think they'll get it done. I'm excited for them. I think off the bye, they'll be really rejuvenated and ready to come out and play here.
Yeah, this is a trend pick. Two teams kind of headed like that. And I've not done well when I faded you this year, but I'm gonna go Iowa State to +5, and I'm also gonna take them to win straight up. I think this would be such a big win for Iowa State, dude. Like such a big win going on the road. Now I still don't know that Iowa State's gonna be able to perform on the road, and Nippert Stadium is kind of rowdy. It's kind of rowdy.
It is. It deserves a lot of credit.
It's a good environment, and Cincinnati's played well at home this year. Even Oklahoma, they gave troubles at home. So if they were giving Dylan Gabriel and that offense some trouble at home, it could be tough for Rocco Becht and that offense to really get going. But I up to this point, Iowa State has impressed me these last couple of weeks, especially offensively, being able to get it done. So if Emory Jones turns the ball over a couple of times, like sometimes he's prone to doing, then I can see Iowa State for sure pulling this one out. So yeah, give me Iowa State +5 and to win straight up. Do I love that pick? No, but if it just give me two teams that are trending in the opposite direction is really what it comes down to. So I mean, good luck to both these teams. I'll be watching this game. It's gonna be an awesome game. So let's go, let's go. Any last thoughts on this? Also, too, because like I struggle like because again we talked about earlier, which coaching staff is better, right? Like when I'm picking these games, I'm trying to think which coaching staff is better, right? And I want to say Matt Campbell, but do we really know for sure? Like, it feels like Satterfield's done okay, but so I went with the Matt Campbell. I think at the end of the game, when it comes down to it, I think Matt Campbell will be able to manage this game, and I think Iowa State can get it done.
Yeah, I'll trust Satterfield here. I think long term wise, I would rather have Matt Campbell running my program than Satterfield. But I do think Satterfield off a bye, veteran quarterback Emory Jones. I
Yep.
think they right the ship starting now, and they get into a stretch like we talked about. Man, these are a lot of winnable football games. Baylor, yes, Oklahoma State's playing better last week, but Oklahoma State, UCF, Houston, and West Virginia deserves to not be thrown in that category because they've been playing awesome. So I'll keep them out of it for there. But like I said, if you want to get to bowl eligibility in year one with Satterfield, which would be a huge, huge win. I don't care what their over under was, right? This would be a huge win for that program there and continue to build steps in the Big 12. So yeah, I'm gonna go Cincinnati. I think the fan base is gonna feel the urgency. The team's gonna feel the urgency. This is the game. This is the game they need.
Yeah. No, there's a very good chance that we're talking about this, chatting about this on Sunday, and I am sitting here like, yeah, what was I thinking? Did I really just buy into this Iowa State team? Did I just buy stock? And then, but I don't know. Give me the vibes. Give me the vibes.
I don't think you're wrong for that. I really don't. But also we talked about with Dylan Gabriel when they played Cincinnati. We said shorter guy in the pocket, yes, that interior push that pressure was going to give you. Rocco Beck is not the biggest dude ever. Yes, he's played fantastic. Recently, he's played fantastic. He's obviously a young guy. He's learning every week. Cincinnati's can. I think Cincinnati might be, the best offense that they've placed. The best defense that they've played so far outside Oklahoma. Excluding Oklahoma, this Cincinnati defense is legit.
Wyoming at Air Force. Let's talk about G5, baby. Let's talk about the Mountain West, giant Mountain West implications in this game. Gigantic Falcons versus the Cowboys, baby. Come on. This game is going to be won on the ground. 100%. You got any thoughts? I got some I got some stuff and I feel pretty good about my pick going in this game, but I want to hear your thoughts first before I get into mine.
I mean, yeah, on the ground, you said this matters. And a lot of people, I think, will watch that Wyoming Fresno State last week and be like, oh my gosh, Wyoming beat ranked Fresno State. And yes, that was a big win. We talked about it. Go check out that video. But Air Force is legit, man. There's a reason why they're 10.5. And I don't think that line has moved, right? Since it opened. Vegas likes their line. And I think Air Force is going to win. I think they're going to cover. I think they're really, really good. I do think they match up. I do think Wyoming matches up okay against Air Force in terms of trying to stop the run and being able to be in a physical, grinded out game. But also, if Air Force goes up 2 touchdowns on you, right, and our Wyoming has to throw the ball, right, Pesley has to throw the ball, it's going to be a different football game. And I do think Air Force, man, they've just been so impressive all year. I think that continues. This is a magical year for them. I think they're going to win. I think they'll end up in a New Year's Six bowl game. We'll get to that when we get there, but let's go. Give me the Falcons and Air Force.
Yeah, when I was looking at this game, and I've watched a good amount of Air Force football this year and Wyoming football for that matter. I watched a lot of both of these teams. And 1,600 yards on the ground through 5 games. What? That's number 1 in the country. They have a top 5 pass and run defense this year. Oh, okay. Look, the Sam Houston game, they played with their food a little bit, but they dominated that game still, even though they won by 10. But since Mountain West play, they're averaging 27-point margin of victory. They're only giving up 3 yards per carry on the ground. They have a 94% red zone scoring rate, which is good for 12th in the country. I mean, holy smokes, this team. And then I was looking at Wyoming, right? And of course, I picked them to win straight up against Fresno State last week, and they did. But again, that game was in Laramie. And I was trying to really find a good reason because I'm like, that line seems so high. And I'm like, I'm trying to find a really good reason to take Wyoming. And I'm looking at their offense, 71st in run defense, or sorry, their defense. I'm like 71st in run defense, 79th in pass defense. They're giving up over 4.5 yards per carry, which is 94th in the country. I mean, they're top 30 in turnover margin, right? And they've played some really good games against really good teams. And they're 5-1 right now. And I'm like, how are they 5-1? Like, I look at them statistically, they're just not impressive. And then I look, and then I see it. They're 5-1. But they've played 5 home games.
Ding, 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 ding.
They played 5 home games. And in Laramie, when the crosswinds are a brewing and the air's thin, literally anything can happen. Right? The one road game that they played, and they played well against Texas, they ended up getting blown out in that second half. Give me Air Force and give me the points, 10.5. I agree with you. I wanted any reason to take Wyoming. I wanted any reason, and I literally could not find it. Like, I think Air Force just might be the Mountain West wagon this year. They just might like Air Force. Like if they went out right in the Mountain West, their schedule is not strong enough to make the college football playoffs. But I would be more than ecstatic to watch Air Force in a New Year's Six bowl. I would be more than ecstatic. And gosh, yeah, just keep going, Air Force. I love watching you guys play. I remember like back in the day when we were playing like NCAA 13, 14. I remember you used to like love playing as Air Force, running that
The
triple
triple option,
option.
man.
Oh yeah.
I'll say this, and they've definitely evolved. They run a little bit more spread tile triple often. They do throw the ball more than I guess a traditional, you know, grind it out triple option. Yes, they only have 19 attempts on the year, but when you're fullback, if you know anything about triple option, right, your fullback is the guy that's right behind the quarterback, and he just gets the ball right at the middle, and you want like 3 yards, I guess, with him. And if you get 3 yards to carry, you can be very happy. He's averaging 4.5 yards per carry this year. Right. That is awesome. When you're getting that kind of penetration in the middle of your roster, right, in the middle of your game, when you can just turn around, hand the ball off for 4.5 yards to carry, that's what makes the triple option. When that's cooking, that's when it's so dangerous because then you have teams start crashing, then you pull, then you're 1-on-1, you're really 2-on-1 with these DBs, and they have to pick one, and they usually make them wrong. You flip it out, and it's a 40-yard run. That's what makes the triple option so hard when you do get that pressure and that push up front. Emmanuel Michel, I believe that's how you pronounce it. He's a dog. 91 carries. They're gonna feed him. I think I look for him to have some grinded out yards, and then let Larry and some of the other running backs to have some explosive plays outside of that. But this is awesome, man. That you see the smile on our faces right now. This we love talking about Air Force. We love talking about the G5, especially the Mountain West here.
Yeah, I can't wait for this game. I cannot wait for this game. And now we're talking about this like Wyoming can't win this football game. They definitely can. 100%. They can cover, they could win. And look, if they manage to do that and they're undefeated in the Mountain West, after facing probably the two best other Mountain West teams, you can maybe throw UNLV in that conversation later. But then that sets them up so well for the Mountain West Championship, like to just kind of cruise your way, run the ball, just win games, not impressively, like not necessarily like, I mean, I shouldn't say not impressively. They don't need to dominate games, right, to win them. So, but yeah, with that being said, Air Force, we're both taking Air Force and we're both taking the points.
If you have nothing to do, I'm sorry. If you are in the Colorado area, Denver, Colorado Springs area, find your way to that game, man. Tickets are not too expensive. Do what you can to be there because that'll be awesome. That'll be awesome.
Georgia Southern at James Madison. The last game that we're going to be previewing this week. Oh, this line has moved up. It was at 4.5 yesterday when I checked. I had to make that adjustment today on the graphic. It's at -5.5. At 6 at some places. Kind of stinky. Kind of super smelly to me.
What is it, man? Is this just they see 5-0 James Madison and they're like, let's rip him at home? Is that
Like,
is that what that is?
they have a Power 5 win. I don't know. Now, okay.
Power five win.
James Madison is a very good football team. James
Yeah,
Madison's
yeah.
a very good football team. They really are. So I think I know where we're both taking this game, but it's not James Madison.
Give me Coastal. Wow. Give me Georgia Southern. We just watched Coastal Carolina last night. Give me Georgia Southern. I'll take them to win. I'll take the points if you're giving me 5.5 of them. I think Davis Brand's a dog. I do think James Madison was vulnerable. If you watched that Virginia game, they were vulnerable through the air with explosive plays. And I think Georgia Southern, as crazy as it may sound on the surface, but it's not really that crazy on reality. I think they're better equipped than Virginia to take advantage of that and to not blow the lead at the end there like Virginia did and get a win on the road in conference play. Right? What James Madison did, and yes, the Virginia win, it'll get the national attention. I think that's very impressive going on the road there. Whatever, I'm happy for you guys. I do think their win at Troy and beating South Alabama are honestly two more impressive wins than that win. Right?
Yes. And the way that
and
they did them too, like the way that they won those games too, like they looked really, really good.
Exactly. But Georgia Southern in their own right has also looked fantastic. I thought they hung in there with Wisconsin at Wisconsin. Right. They kind of bullied Coastal Carolina last week. And correct me if I'm wrong, Georgia Southern has excuse me there. Georgia Southern has like a little bit of extended bye, right? Because they didn't they played like 2 weeks ago and it was on like a Thursday or a Friday. It was or whatever it was, like or no, it was on Saturday. I'm so sorry.
But regardless, coming off a bye.
Yeah, I that's why Georgia Southern and the points. You can talk about it.
Yeah. Well, look, James Madison, how were they able to shut down Troy and South Alabama? Right. That's a reasonable question. Both are actually pretty decent football teams. Those are pretty decent football teams, if you ask me. Well, James Madison has the number 1 run defense in the entire country. Right. And that's not just because like they've played not good, like Ladarius Webb for South Alabama, very, very good player. Vidal for Troy is one of the leading rushers in the entire country. Right. So what is James Madison doing there? Like they're shutting guys down. They hit hard, they fly up the field. But Georgia Southern doesn't run the ball. In fact, they're second to last in the country, 132nd in the country in run percentage. They run the ball about 20 times per game. That's it. Granted, they run it really effectively because when they do it, they're running in light boxes, right? Yeah. Which James Madison's not going to be able to do. James Madison, you talked about it, explosive plays in the pass game. They're giving up 13.5 yards per reception, about 8 yards per attempt. They're 131st in pass defensive yards allowed per game. They don't know how to defend it. And last year, we know this game played last year, 48-38 or 45-38, 1,000 total yards passing in that game. And James Madison, I think, added another 200 on the ground. I mean, an offensive absolute shootout. Davis Brin, stud for Georgia Southern at quarterback. Jordan McLeod's good. James Madison, he's good. He's been effective. He's been efficient. But Davis Brin, dude, he's a stud. He is a rising star. And, I mean, look, they're 9th in the pass offense in the country. Their defense is pretty balanced. It's average, but it's pretty balanced. I mean, they have 4 receivers right now with over 20 receptions. Which, by the way, if you didn't know, Iowa's wide receivers in totality combined do not even have 20 receptions. Right? Guys like Caleb Hood, a little bit undersized, but if you're a Georgia Southern fan or you're a Sunbelt fan, you knew exactly who Caleb Hood was going into this season. If you're a college fantasy football player, you knew exactly who this guy was. A highly sought after guy. Game 1, only had like 45 receiving yards or whatever. But since then, he's had over 7 receptions. The last 2 games, he's had over 100 yards. But then also Burgess, the number 2 guy. Right? He's had 7 receptions in the last 4 games. So it's like they're throwing the ball around and they're throwing the ball well. So I think this game is going to be a shootout. And if you're going to give me this game in a shootout, give me Davis Brin and the fighting Georgia Southerns. Give me Georgia Southern plus 5.5, and also give me them to win straight up.
I love that. I love that. And yes, home field matters here, obviously, but Georgia Southern's played well on the road here so far this year. James Madison, reversely, has I guess also played well on the road, but come back here at 11 o'clock a.m. ESPN2. Watch that game, please do. We talked about the 11 o'clock games here. There's some interesting ones, but this is at the top of my list here for all those games there. I'm gonna be watching this game because the Sun Belt implications. You've got the G5, um, New Year's Six bowl game, implications obviously, and for all those other reasons, but also it's gonna be really good football. Good football playing two good football teams playing each other. Why not watch it? And that's why we're covering it because we do believe in both these teams. They both earn the right for us to pick them out of 9 games that this season of this week that we've covered, and excited to watch them.
Yeah, James Madison is a phenomenal football team, but again, I'm picking Georgia Southern because it's matchup based, right? They're traveling on the road to kind of a rowdy building, a bit of a rowdy barn, but yeah, just give me Georgia Southern. I think the points, there's too many points. And I think if it's a shootout, I think we could see Georgia Southern. If it's down to like who has the ball last, I think we could see Georgia Southern coming out with
Yeah, and credit James Madison. They have not been in the FBS for long. Georgia Southern, joined recently as well. But definitely James Madison the past couple of years, they've been awesome. They've been really good. Last year they were pretty good. This year, obviously off to a hot start. But yeah, we both believe in Georgia Southern this year.
It's time for upset meter. We got 4 teams. If you don't know the rules, we pick 4 teams. What's the one qualification? Has to be a 10-point spread at least. Last week we had Michigan. We rated them cold. It was very cold. But we also on this list we had Kansas State. Yikes. They lost. We had Miami. Yikes. They lost. And then we had USC in a 21.5-point spread. We put them on this list. And yikes, they went to overtime with Arizona. So these are teams that are on upset alert. Granted, I feel better about some of them than I feel with others. Let's talk about Utah first. They're playing Cal at home. That is a huge factor. Utah does not lose at home. 13.5-point favorites against Cal. Cal's been playing pretty decent football, if you ask me, for Cal standards. And Utah offensively struggled a lot. I don't think Cam Rising is going to be back for this next game. I don't know if he's going to be back at all this season. It feels like the news just keeps coming out. He keeps working, right? But it's the same injury that Hendon Hooker had, and he's not going to even play for the entire rest of this NFL season. So he's completely sitting out. So Cam Rising's done plenty for that program, but we might have to start looking at Utah moving forward as a team that's not going to have Cam Rising. So, anyways, for this, I have this game right around sweating. I get it that Utah's at home and they handled a team like UCLA at home, right, with that defense just absolutely balling out. But they lose another running back in that running back room to injury. That's just not a starter, but depth piece. It just feels like injuries, man, like might start catching up to Utah pretty soon here. Now, obviously, I trust Kyle Whittingham with my life because that guy just knows how to win football games. But I rated about sweating. Definitely not steaming because it's at home. But if it was on the road, I think it might get piping. But because it's at home, that's how valuable home field advantage is for them. I have it rated here at about sweating.
I would agree, absolutely. And how about California? Fernando Mendoza, right? He came in last week against Oregon State and played pretty well. They put up a lot of points there. The freshman there did. Yeah, I want Cam Rising to get healthy so bad. So bad. I think we all do. Maybe if you're in the Pac-12 and you're not named Utah, maybe you don't, but they need him back badly. I was hoping Nate Johnson would do some things there, but I think they got a bye week. They much needed that bye week. They played a bunch of physical football games. They got it right. I trust Kyle Whittingham to get it done, and yeah, so I'm definitely not overly confident because of the quarterback situation there, and because California is coming in there, and they're not that bad a football team. But yeah, I think at home off a bye, good coaching staff. Give me Utah to win. I'm not too worried.
All right. Throw that in there. Florida State, 17.5 point favorites against the Fighting Garrett Traders. Notice I didn't say the Fighting Syracuse Orange because it is just Garrett Trader on that team. And that is why I'm not worried about this game in the slightest. We had Michigan cold against Minnesota last week. I put Florida State in that category as well. I do not see a scenario in which Florida State loses this football game.
Uh, I'm with you. I think at home too. What's going on for Syracuse right now? They kind of got bullied by Clemson, pulled away. You got bullied by North Carolina last week. The Garrett Shredder magic has run out so far this year. In this stretch of series, right? We talked about this was going to be their brutal stretch. Clemson at North Carolina at Florida State. And then you can get into a bye week and rest up. But we're still in that stretch here. I'm not too worried at all. Give me Florida State. Absolutely. I'd put them probably in the cold area as well. Maybe even below cold.
Yeah, I agree 1,000%. All right. LSU. They're at home against Auburn. Line's minus 11.5. You can get at 11 at some places. To me, what's wrong with LSU, right? It's their pass defense, giving up explosive plays. And they're playing the one team in the SEC that I am not worried about that happening at all. And also, Auburn has not handled like pressure on the passer as well either. Like, one, they haven't been able to throw the ball well. Part of that's because they've given up a lot of pressure to the quarterback. And credit LSU for being able to do that against Missouri down the stretch, getting pressure on Brady Cook and making those plays. So even though like LSU's secondary is pretty abysmal right now, I think if they just get to the passer, I think they can find a way to beat Auburn here pretty handily. I think this offense is way too explosive. Doesn't matter what defense you're throwing out there. Jaden Daniels is playing at such a high level right now. Yeah, I put this is a mild play for me. Right, this is mild. This is not sweating because I don't trust Auburn's passing offense. But at the same time, in the SEC, we've seen crazy things happen. LSU also gets this one at home, so
That's nice for them to come back home. Yeah, like you said, that matchup between Peyton Thorne or whoever they throw out there against LSU. Auburn is coming off a bye, right? And LSU did have to go to Missouri and play in a pretty hard fought game for two straight weeks in a row. But yeah, Auburn, if they're gonna win this game, they're gonna have to throw the ball effectively, right? And that I think that means they're gonna have to throw the ball early and often on first down and try to push the ball on the field before you give LSU a chance to buckle down on third down and really come after the pass rusher. I just don't think they have the weapons or the consistency on offense to do that. And that if you try to do that, you come out and you miss, then it's look into a real big blowout here. And that's where I do think it might be heading for Auburn there, especially at LSU. So yeah, I'm not too worried in this game exactly. But like we said, it's the SEC. Especially in this game, Auburn always plays LSU in a good game. And that could happen this year, but I don't see it happening.
yeah, it's not exactly cold for me, but it's definitely a mild for sure. Maryland, they play Illinois, and that game's at home as well. The common denominator, though, with all these games, that these are all at home. So pretty interesting to me, not gonna lie. But I do think Illinois has been playing some pretty abysmal football for what we thought it was going to be this year.
That
That was
that
a
that
huge
is
miss
that
by
is
the Pros.
being nice. That is being nice. Abysmal is it has been like demoting level. Like they could be demoted, right, to the FCS because of how just poor they played at home and on the road.
Yeah, and Maryland's been playing good. Look, I mean, it's Ohio State. Like they were up in that game. Like and they've played well defensively at times until Ohio State said, "Let's play the Marvin Harrison Jr. game." Right? But not seen any Marvin Harrison Juniors in Illinois. Not seen it. And I believe Josh McCray just went he went down, he got hurt. Correct me. I think Reggie Love's the one that's Josh McCray, I believe, went down. But comment section, you can correct me on if I'm wrong on that. But Illinois got that freshman right that everyone's been wanting them to play. Absolute massive unit of a body. I think Maryland can handle him though. Luke Altmaier's not looked great. Whoever they throw back there, I mean, it's just not working right now. It's just not working. So I'm not worried about this game at all. This is a mild play, and I'm less worried about Maryland than I am worried about LSU. And I'm not very worried about LSU at all.
I couldn't agree more. I think this part of this is because I do think Maryland is maybe a better football team than I thought they were going to be. But part of this is also Illinois has just really, really not impressed at any point in any game that they've played all year. Even going back to the first game, yes, Toledo is not terrible. Right, they're a good team in the MAC there, but they snuck out a win against Toledo and against FAU. That's not going to happen here against Maryland on the road.
Both
No,
both
thank
were
you.
close games, by the way.
That's what I'm saying. They snuck them out at home. When they went on the road, they played Kansas and they played Purdue, and they got boat raced in both of them. And I think that could there's reason this line is at 14. Sometimes you can find value in those high lines. Not in this game. I do think, at least on the side of Illinois, I don't really see them, making this a close game. That's why I'm not too worried.
Yeah, I agree. I'm putting them right there. Yeah, so to recap, I mean, Florida State, way cold against Syracuse. They're going to win that game. Maryland also have that game pretty cold as well. Uh, but also we had Miami right in that range last week. Now, granted, Miami should have won that game. I mean, no one's arguing that. But outgaining them by like 300 yards before that last play and then not taking the knee, like, goodness. I mean, I think we were right to put them there. LSU, I mean, they're right there. I don't know. I really like LSU this week, and we might see here in a second that I like them a lot. And Utah, just their offense is struggling a little bit. We got them in sweating territory against Cal. So moving on to everyone's favorite segment, the segment where you get to fade my picks and make lots of money. Although, guess what? We're back though. I didn't like the board last week, and I said it. Of course, it went 1-4. Because I said it. I really like the board this week. First play, Texas A&M, Tennessee, under 55.5. You can actually get that at 56.5 on WinBet. In a lot of places, that's not available, though. But if you live in New York and you want to play that, I think that's a really good value. Really good value. So, give me LSU minus 11 for all the reasons that we just talked about with Auburn. They can't throw the ball. LSU can't defend the pass. Something's going to give. Well, what's going to give is the LSU pass rush is going to give them the business. So, and they're not going to stop scoring. And it's at home. It feels like this line is just way too low. It's 11.5 in most places, but try to get it at 11, right? We line shop here. We're trying to get the best value for you guys. So just get it at 11. Don't think about it. NC State Duke under 47. That is the best number that you can get it at. 46 snaps are out there. 46s are out there. Don't bother. Don't mess with those. Give me 47. In this game, Riley Leonard likely not playing, and NC State playing on the road. I think Mike Elko is going to have that defense dialed in at home. Give me the under 47. I'm looking at a 24-21 score. That's it. Guess what? That hits. So fade me that. Wake Forest +2. That's actually I have it written down here. Actually, what book is that on? It's +1.5 almost everywhere, but you can get at -112 at Bet Rivers. I like that. If you're gonna 2 cents for half a point, fine, I'll take it. No big deal. Even though it's not a key number, but I still like that. I still like that. So they're playing Virginia Tech on the road. Of course, it's a tough place to play in Blacksburg, but Wake Forest, they haven't looked great this season, but I don't think Virginia Tech has earned the right to be favored against any team, home or on the road. I don't know if you agree with that statement or not, but I think I get proved wrong, right? Weird things happen in Blacksburg right there at home. But I like Wake Forest. I can't not take them here. And I think a lot of people, once that line crossed, I think it opened at -1 for Wake Forest, and it has crossed 0. So I'm all over that for sure. Georgia Southern +6 for all the reasons that we talked about. Just a good matchup. They're going to throw the ball. And in that same game, a little buy one. How about that? A buy one, get one free in the Sun Belt right there. Buy Georgia Southern plus 6, and get for free JMU Georgia Southern over 58.5. I took a over 58.5 for Baylor Texas Tech last week. I'm not gonna say it should have hit, but it was because we didn't get offensive production from Baylor. We're gonna get offensive production from both of these teams, and this is gonna be a shootout. Last year, this game was 45-38. Now, granted, the rosters have changed quite a bit since then, but what hasn't changed is Georgia Southern's ability to throw the football and JMU's ability to just let up explosive plays. So, but yeah, it's just those 6 this week on Dawson Designer. You can follow me on Twitter, the Redshirt Sophomore, and look, might have some Twitter plays coming out, but maybe not because my Twitter plays so far are like 0-4. So if you're gonna ride with anything, just ride with the ones we got here. But still give us a follow on Twitter because we love interacting with you guys. And look, if you don't like my picks, you can let me know on Twitter. So no big deal. But yeah, -5 units on the season. 4 straight weeks have gone down. You're either
We're
hot or you're
back,
due,
though.
baby. I'm
We're
coming
back.
back. I'm telling you, I feel really good about this week. About a 5-1 week. That's not crazy. That's not too crazy to ask for. Come on.
Maybe I'll throw a $1 parlay on all these, and
And
when
win
it hits,
big.
we'll be rich. Yeah.
Win big. All right. But yeah, thank you guys. That's the end of our week 7 preview. If you guys are joining us for the first time, make sure you guys like the content. If you like the content, like the video. That's an easy rule, right? Subscribe. Of course, if you want to catch our content later, especially the recap for these games, we record those Sunday night, post on Monday. We record this Wednesday night and we post Thursday, right? So the Monday, Thursday schedule, we get 2 episodes out a week. Of course, we appreciate you guys' support. It's been growing. Channel's been going pretty fast at a way faster rate than I thought it would. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. We cannot thank you guys enough, of course. So CD, you got anything?
Nope. Just enjoy the weekend. Watch some college football. Come back on Sunday or on Monday for us when we talk about them.
Yeah, absolutely. So feed me this slate. This is a good slate, right? We have a top 10 matchup. We have a college football playoff implication game in USC Notre Dame. Basically, the Sun Belt Conference Championship right here with Georgia Southern, James Madison. Well, not really, but big implications there. And right now, basically, the 2 leaders in the Mountain West, Air Force and Wyoming. So come on, and Miami and North Carolina. What are we talking about here? This is a great slate. So can't wait to check it out. Can't wait to watch it on Saturday. And we will see you guys in the next one.